Okay, Vero Joshi, thank you for coming on my show, the Healthy Indian Podcast. As you know, this show is geared towards mental health, wellness, and fitness. So, and I know you start on the famous Indian Matchmaking show. So, thank you for coming on.
For sure. Thanks so much for having me.
No, for sure. Let's talk about you. I know this was like one of your, you started out acting in Indian Matchmaking and stuff. How's your experience with that?
It was great. I mean, starting from the very beginning with production and just the whole process of getting on board was super smooth and like the production crew is they're great. And then obviously working with Monty, that we had a few hiccups in the beginning, just trying to get over the cultural barrier, the language barriers, and just style of talking and like, what someone means and then versus how it's coming across, but then you're trying to understand these cultural barriers that make it difficult to really kind of gauge how the conversation's going to go. But once that was ironed out and I just focused on the fact that, she's an auntie who really does have my best interest at heart, it was much easier to kind of block out the noise and just kind of be like laser focused on what I was trying to do. And then, yeah, like traditional dating didn't work for me. Like the apps, meeting through people, nothing was working. And I was like, well, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, right? So I was like, I need to do something totally different. And so I took this risk and thankfully it's all worked out.
Awesome. And how was it like dating in this era for you? Because like just the apps and stuff. Like, did you try going on any of them, or was it just like, okay, let me just go into matchmaking. Let me just see how this goes.
I tried just about every single one. But I also knew that I was looking for someone who was Gujarati, who spoke the language. And so those aren't things that I'm just going to naturally, easily come across. I can see a Gujarati person, but if they don't speak the language, I'm not going to see that from a profile immediately, right? So it was a lot of trial and error. And then, when I got to that point where I was like, yeah, like I'm Gujarati, but I don't really know anything about my religion. I don't really know anything about my culture. I don't speak the language. I was like, then this isn't going to work, right? So
Yeah.
one motivation for going on Indian matchmaking and working with specifically an Indian matchmaker versus any other like matchmaking show like The Bachelorette or whatever was that I knew that the person who was in a lead role in this matchmaking process was someone who was going to understand why I was looking for what I was looking for. So I thought she would be a good match. I saw season 1 and I thought she gave people good matches. Whether they worked out, when they actually met and whatnot, that's a different story, obviously. But I thought on paper they all look good. But yeah, dating in this modern era, like it sucks. Like I always tell Ashay, I'm like, I'm so glad I never have to go on the dating apps again. Cause it's tough out there. Like I was on there for I think I downloaded my first app in like 2018. So like 4 years ago, and just the success rate was so low. And I think what sucks about dating online is it makes people feel dispensable. And I don't think that's a healthy way to approach dating. But you never know who's truly serious versus who's just, messing around. That makes it
No,
really hard to date.
no, you're so right. Because like when it comes to dating too, some people just want to talk to you for the talk. They don't want to really date you. And then
Right.
some people want to date you, but then they change their mind. Or like,
Right.
like down the lane, like, hey, like this is getting too serious. Let me run away from this. Or,
That
you
does
know,
happen a lot.
yeah, so I've encountered multiple people like that.
Mhm.
When it comes to the show itself, has it taught you any lessons? Like just when it comes to understanding dating and stuff too, because we all as human beings, we're all want our needs, right? We have our little checklist, like we
Yeah.
have what we want in somebody because it's your life, right? It's something
Mhm.
that you're a part of. Is there something that the show has taught you that maybe you didn't expect, kind of, because it's different being on a show, right? So.
It is. It is. But one thing this show actually taught me how to date because what would happen with
No.
me is like I would go on a date with someone and I would put so much pressure on myself to make it work because I was like, okay, this person has like all these qualities I'm looking for. This has to work. But then it was just horrible, I guess, is a way to describe it. Because, when you put a lot of pressure on yourself, you inadvertently put a lot of pressure on the other person. And then that's just a recipe for disaster. But what I learned through this show is like going on these casual dates with like Guy Viral or Jamin, for example. Like it's just, you have a brief encounter and then you can move on. And just because it doesn't work out doesn't mean, that you're like a failure or anything like that. Um,
Yeah.
mhm.
Go ahead. No
Oh no,
worries.
and I was just gonna move on. And then eventually, after it's all dating is a numbers game. And eventually, like I got to a point where I met Ashe and then things like progressed from there.
Right, right, right. I feel like I try not to get too invested in the high and the lows with the dating, but when
Right.
sometimes dating goes south, you like take months of break and then you just
Oh
doubt
yeah,
yourself.
for
So how
sure.
did you, and from a mental health perspective, and this
Mhm.
I can relate to this, how did you deal with like, did you ever have self doubt about yourself? Because I feel like sometimes I'm like, oh man, because I'm single, and I'm like,
Mhm.
man, I don't know if I'm gonna end up with people, or dating is
Mhm.
just hard. Like it's messing
Yeah.
with like my self esteem. Did you ever deal with that?
I did. Like I think again going back to dating apps being something or a platform where people can feel dispensable and like you gave the example earlier, just like people want to talk to you, then they get to a point and then they like just completely back out or like they disappear, like you get ghosted or like God
Right.
forbid you ghost someone. Hopefully people aren't doing
Yeah.
it, but it does happen. That is a reality with online dating. And there were many times where I would have conversations with my friends and I was like, you know what? I'm going to end up single forever. And it got to a point where I had already made backup plans for what I was going to do with my life in the event I truly don't find anyone. So yeah, it was you get down in the dumps, but then I'm someone who tries to be like proactive about things and you look at the bright side and it can feel like being in a relationship is the end all be all because I think growing up in the Indian culture, that's almost what it was kind of felt like, you go to school and then you get married, like and you go to school to get a good job so you can be a good bachelor or bachelorette for the dating pool. And then once you're married, no one like all the pressure from parents is off until it's like time where they want like grandkids or something. So it's like
Oh yeah.
we grew up in such a weird like okay, everything's always working towards marriage in a way. And then so when you kind of have the feeling that it might not happen for you, that can be very dejecting. But I think it's always important to just remind yourself it's a numbers game. It only has to work out with one person. You don't need like five people for it to work out with. So finding the right person, and it's also worth it. Good thing my dad always told me good things take time. Anything that's worth value, you shouldn't rush anyway. So I advised myself to take my alone time to get to really know who I was so that when I did find the right person, I was ready and I knew what I was willing to compromise on versus not.
So yeah, no, definitely. And I think you being like, self independent and also taking the time to that. And not a lot of people do that, right? I
Hmm.
always hear from my friends like make sure you don't settle, make sure you don't settle. You're one of
Yeah.
a kind. But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, it gets to you, right? Like, once you're a certain, you see certain like marriages happen in front of your face
Hmm.
and stuff. It's hard, and it definitely
And yeah.
with everything else will work. Like, we all have mental health issues at work, even,
Yeah.
right? Or just even like when we're going out for a walk and you see a family of four, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's tough, right? So
It is
I
hard.
think we could all learn from you in the sense of like, no, you know what? Be
Mhm.
self-independent and, take your time to explore what your passions are. So,
Yeah.
so what keeps you interested in a relationship?
What keeps me interested? I mean, I think keeping just like the natural like curiosity about the other person. It's always nice to have like, especially when it's like quote unquote cuffing season, right? Everyone's kind of in that like, oh, I want to be home with someone so I can like enjoy Christmas movies with or like do things like that with. But what keeps me in it is just having that bond with someone that's very special and someone who is, for me it was important that they were Indian and could share the culture with me. So it's nice with Ashe, like I can, we talk about how like, oh, when it's Diwali, like my family does this, and then he talks about like what his family would do, and it's just a nice way to bond. I think he's also very supportive, so having like a strong support system and just someone you can share like intimate details of your life with. I think that's very special, and I think that's what keeps me motivated in a relationship, and I think love is always worth it.
No, it's very interesting when you say that because I think of like, just having like the similar cultural background for Indian people and just, celebrating something like Diwali, for example, or
Mhm.
Navratri, right? It's like something that your parents and the other person's parents can bond over. And,
Yeah.
you guys can play like board games and stuff, but I think it kind of brings everyone together. So just having that similar aspect or like just a
Mhm.
mentality too, it's important, even when it comes to, I guess, diets, right? Like people have specific type of diets, vegetarian,
Sure.
non-vegetarian, right? So
Sure.
I think those are really important factors when it comes to a relationship. So,
Right.
um, so I guess when it comes to mental health, uh,
Mhm.
was there anything the show like you kind of struggled with during the show with mental health? Because it seems like it's like a lot like when it comes like the cameras in your face and there's a
Mhm.
lot of people want like they have an opinion about you, right?
Sure.
Like is there any struggles that you kind of had?
I mean, I think the sudden attention was definitely a lot. And I think it's easy to get caught up in, things people say, but what people said about me didn't really bother me because I'd spent so much time being single that I'd become self-aware, self-actualized, and all these things. So I was like, they don't really understand who I am. They don't know who I am. We film over the course of several months, but you just get like, over the course of the whole season, you get like 1 hour with me. Like I always reminded myself that, anyone who's passing a judgment on me, who's met me on TV for an hour, that's not a valid opinion. What did get to
Definitely.
me was when people like started talking about my relationship with Ashe. Because everyone's like, oh, she can do better, he can do better. And it's just like no one asked for all these opinions, but when you go in a public platform like this, you know what you're signing up for. So having reminding myself that, I signed up for this, you kind of have you can't really let it get to you because you kind of knew what you signed up for, right? But there were definitely struggles, and I think what's nice is like I have a very strong friend support system, and they always reminded me because like I think what's something about getting depressed or sad is you're too focused on like the nitty gritty and like you're too focused on one specific incident. But I think when you have friends or a support system that can give you that 50,000 foot view again and just a larger, bigger picture perspective and remind you that in next year, this time, this isn't going to be a big deal. Or, even like 3 weeks from now, it's not going to be a big deal. So just reminding yourself to like keep pushing forward, I think is really, really important.
No, definitely, and I think it resonates with our viewers because there's a lot of people that deal with self doubt, deal with
Mhm.
just things may not work out, and everyone has like especially even in high school, college, people are always judging you. So I think having you as a role model would really help the viewers understand that hey, it does work out. It's just you have to believe in yourself and believe in your relationship and not like you said, don't worry about what all these other people are commenting, posting their
For
thoughts
sure.
because it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Like maybe just turn off your notifications sometimes and just go
Yeah.
go off for like a vacation,
Yeah.
So
The thing is,
uh,
like, no one knows you better than you, and no one knows you better, your life story better than you, right? So any opinion that's going to bring you down, it's just not worth really reading into. And I always say, like, you never meet a hater doing better than you. And that is such a true statement. It's something I learned in high school and has stuck with me because it's a very true statement. You'll be
that's a great
surprised.
statement. No, it's definitely a great statement too because the more you hate, you're wasting your energy on someone else, right? You're
Right.
not bettering yourself. You're just
Oh, for sure. It's a
selfish.
total projection, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. It's just of who they are or their insecurities moldering up in you. And, they see you getting ahead. So they probably have something to say because they're sitting at home doing nothing. So, no,
Exactly.
definitely.
Yeah.
But, interesting. Okay, cool. So there's something I did research a little bit.
Mhm.
So, I did see that you were the cast on the Iron Man, one of the
Yeah.
extras. So
Yeah.
how did that turn out? Because that was just something interesting to me.
Uh-huh.
But it's a pretty cool thing because I guess a lot of people don't know that about you, and
Right.
it shows that you do
Yeah.
have a little bit of experience with acting. So,
I have been in front of the cameras before, yes. So it actually started completely kind of like Indian matchmaking. It was total serendipity. I was
uh,
my roommate in college, she was a film major and she had heard that Iron Man 3 was coming to town and they were looking for extras. and she wanted to go. She didn't want to go alone. So I was like, yeah, I'll go and we can like do it together. So we wait in line at the mall for like, I think it was like 2 hours, like a line wrapped around the building. It's Iron Man, it's Marvel. Of course, it's going to be a huge, everyone's going to be there. And then so we finally get there and then like they take our pictures, they talk to us a little bit, and then they're like, all right, see ya. And then a few months later, they actually emailed me and were like, "Oh, we want you to be our extra." And that's how it started.
Which it was Iron Man 1 or 2?
Three.
You were in 3. Okay, okay.
Mhm.
Because the article just said Iron Man, so I was like,
No,
maybe she was in all 3 of them, you
no,
don't know.
no, 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 no. And it's not even like a. It's truly just like an extra role. I wasn't even supposed to. I remember being on the set. I wasn't even supposed to be on the scene because what they do in these productions is they have a set and they run the whole set at the same time, but the camera's only in one corner. And just in case the director changes his mind or wants a different visual like aesthetic, then they'll switch the camera, but the whole set is live. And then so I was on a
Um,
completely opposite end where like John Favreau was. And so I
oh.
I knew the camera wasn't going to come to us. And then like somehow I guess just like I don't know, maybe it was like a quote unquote meant to be or whatever. The director called cut and then he just started scanning around the room and he literally pointed to me and he was like, "You come here." And then so I moved over and then they
Wow.
wanted me to just be the person who walked in the background. So yeah, it's just,
That's so
it was,
funny.
it was total fate.
Wait, that's amazing though. The fact that you're like, "Oh, I have a little part in this movie." That's really
Yeah.
interesting.
No, it's nice. It's fun. It was always my corporate fun fact. Everyone go around the room. We're a new team. What's your fun fact? It was always that one. And then luckily, like there's a little snippet on YouTube because like people would be like, no way. And then I could just like point it out and they'd be like, oh my God, that's you. So no, it was a really fun experience. Very cool. If
It's so
anyone, if anyone listening ever has the opportunity to be an extra on a movie, totally go for it.
How do you even become an extra on a movie? Is this something you apply for, or is it just
I have
something
no
they
idea.
try you
I
out?
have no idea. My friend, she was my roommate at the time. She was the one who found out about it and she probably found out about it through like her circle at school because they were all film students, right? So I actually don't know how you do it. It just kind of happened.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Do you have I guess any other acting I guess you know passions that you want to pursue, or it was just kind of like for the dating and that was it
It
mainly?
honestly, the truly, like, believe it or not, the only reason I came on this show was to find love. That was it. Like, I didn't care to be like an influencer. I didn't care to like, go do all this acting stuff. That wasn't why I did this. Like, I truly did this to find love. And anything that happens after that, great. But as long as like what I was like, my one goal was achieved and that's it.
Wait, that's awesome because I grew up watching like Love Is Blind and
Yeah.
like The Bachelor, and then when this show came out, I was like, you know what, this is so cool that they actually have Indian people, and
Yeah.
fast forward a few months now, I'm like, interviewing you guys somehow.
Interviewing. Yeah.
So
No,
it's
it's
crazy
cool.
how life works. It's
Yeah.
crazy how life works. Um, oh, I also know that you're really into reading.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
so
yeah.
like, so you're like a huge reader. You're like a
Yes.
bookworm.
Yes.
So
100%.
what got you into that?
I actually hated reading growing up. All throughout like kindergarten to high school when they forced these books onto us, I hated every single one of them. I would spark notes it, just do whatever I could not to read it. But then I think like I started traveling more with like my parents. We would go to like, just outside of the country. And it just opened my mind a lot more. Like the more different people you interact with, the more open-minded I think you become. And then I remember we were like went on a cruise one time and I was like, okay, I need to like fill my time. So what am I going to do? The internet doesn't work. So let me okay, fine. I'll just like pick up a book. And then I picked up a book and I read that and then like I absolutely loved it. And then it took off from there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I think reading is such an important tool to use,
Oh, for sure.
especially for the audience, because I think it's such a good like way to, I guess, tackle mental health as well,
Hmm.
because I feel like if you feel smarter, you read a lot and you're
Hmm.
knowledgeable on a lot of topics, you're going to feel confident, right? And I think having a good diction and good like vocabulary is so powerful because you're so good at representing your voice. Even like when people are commenting on your relationship, you know how to like talk back to them. So it's kind
Yeah.
of cool.
No, for
Um,
sure. I think it's important. There's a lot of benefits to reading. I think it opens up your mind. I think it makes you a better writer. I think it makes you a better like public speaker. Um, there's really no downside to it. Yeah, it takes a lot of time, but I think it's so worth it. And for someone who like enjoys movies, the book is always better. So there's like another motivation.
what are your top three, I guess, favorite books you would recommend to
Um,
like just people in general?
just
Because
I think
yeah.
it depends on what you're looking for. I think one thing that's important for people who might be dealing with mental health is like my favorite book. It's called The Geography of Bliss by Eric Weiner. And what he did like it's a nonfiction book and it's kind of based in research in the sense of he meets this guy who's studying in the Netherlands who's studying happiness and what that means and where you can find it. So based on various parameters of happiness, like is happiness really good food? Is happiness really like having a lot of money? And so what he
Wow.
does is he travels the whole world that's defined by this parameter. So, for example, if everyone thinks like happiness is money, he goes to Dubai and he assesses the happiness of the people there. And then
So
he
cool.
then he goes to like the poorest country in the world. And so just seeing him navigate different definitions of happiness. And then at the end of the book, he tells you where he actually found it. And I think it's really cool and I think people should read it.
Oh
Um,
wow.
so
I like how you give out no spoilers. That's
no
good.
spoilers. No, 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 no.
No, that's
Um,
good. That's
so
good.
that's a good one, I think, for mental health and like looking for happiness because it does explore those different parameters, right? Um, and then I think The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is always a great one.
Very good. Yeah.
I think you can get something new every time you read it. And that's the classic is, your life destiny or is it like free will? And then I think
I
my, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead. No
Oh,
worries.
and then my third favorite book, being Gujarati, this isn't surprising, but it's Rich Dad Poor Dad. Um,
Oh, okay.
that's a great book. I think you can learn a lot of financial tools from it, and I think the younger you are when you read it, the better, so you can understand what is truly an asset versus like a liability.
I think it's something that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of pivot towards as well,
Hmm.
because understanding your finances and understanding how it's something we don't get taught in school. So I think
No,
that's a great resource for a book to use to definitely understand leadership and financial stuff. So
right,
I think that
right. No, for sure. I definitely those are my top three when it comes to recommendations for sure.
yeah, I think one of my favorite books is Rewire Your Brain by Jacob
Okay.
King. And it's
Okay.
like about different emotions and stuff, and it's just about perspective. It's
Hmm.
similar to Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, but it kind of
Hmm.
lets you see like how to assess different emotions that come up in your brain and to look at it from like a different lens, like kind of like understanding your emotions behind it rather
Hmm.
than reacting to the situation. So that's what it's
Nice.
about. So,
That's a cool
yeah.
book. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a really that big of a bookworm, but I'm trying to get into reading. I think that
Yeah.
was something I picked up during the pandemic, so that
I
was a
got
tough
you.
time. That was a
Yeah.
tough
No,
time.
it was hard. It was hard. But the reading you can now that New Year's is around the corner, it's your New Year's resolution.
Yes, that's a good tip. Maybe I'll take you up on that. Awesome, awesome. I think there is oh yeah, so there was also an interesting thing I read that
Mhm.
when it comes to diet, right? Do you
Mhm.
have a specific diet that you're into? I know people mentioned it. Could I
Yeah.
mention it if it's okay, or it's like a
Yeah,
name?
sure, go for it. It's like a
Okay.
coin term now.
Okay, let me try to think what it was. Semi lacto ovo some
Uh,
vegetarian?
yes, those words, not in that order. So it's ovo,
Okay, yes,
lacto,
exactly. You can
semi-vegetarian. That's like the phrase I'm known for, essentially. And what that means, so ovo is eggs, lacto is like dairy, and then
dairy. Yeah.
semi-vegetarian is incorporating, people who don't see eggs as like
Oh,
vegetarian.
okay.
Because a lot of people in Indian culture, they do like I grew up in the temple and there they were like, "Oh, you can't have eggs, that's meat." And then so people would call that a semi, if you ate eggs, you were like a semi-vegetarian because some people don't identify eggs as meat. And so I was like, so, and then I'm on the date with that guy, and then, it's a 3 hour date. You guys only see like 30 minutes of it. And then so the way things are like chopped and like moved around to really condense like what happened on the date and like remove the filler, it just looks like I just spilled that out, but that's not exactly how it was, but it's all right.
I've noticed the show has a way of doing show, like, the angles and cameras, and even certain, like you said, 3 hour long conversations and chop it
Yeah.
up, right? And I feel
Yeah.
like that's a lot of shows. Like, we don't get to see that
Right.
part of it.
Right.
But that's a very cool. I guess it was a cool term, right? Because never
Yeah.
heard anyone do it. Because
Yeah.
like, I eat eggs too, like, big deal, and I'm
Right.
vegetarian. Like, it's not a big deal. Just I just eat eggs. I'm
Yeah.
vegetarian, but
Yeah. And then like Guy Viral, he's Jane. And so, he was like, so that's why I was like, what do you define as meat? And everyone like gave me crap for it. She was like, an animal. And I was like, well, that's not quite how it is. But, I can't explain everything to the whole world. If you don't get it and you criticize me for it, that's fine. But, as Janes, like, they don't eat like root vegetables, for example. And then so I asked him, what do you define as meat? Thinking like, oh, does he consider eggs meat? But the whole conversation was just chopped in a weird
Jainism.
way. So
It's
whatever.
interesting because no, it's interesting because I'm actually half Jain and half Brahmin.
Uh huh.
But the thing is, I eat whatever I want because I grew up here, and
Yeah.
it's not like I'm gonna like. I try my best to worship Jainism, but at the
Mhm.
same time, there's things that are changing with the times, and I feel like with me, it's not that deep.
Uh-huh.
Maybe will call me uncultured for this, but
Sure. It's
I
okay.
think it's about your personal choice, right? Just like
Right.
same with like anything else that's happening in the country and stuff too, right? Like when it comes to political stuff, but
Sure.
everything is your choice. I
It
think
is.
that it's my choice to like do what I want. So I think even considering like the
Mhm.
whole conversation with, I think you're supposed to be able to have a conversation with someone if the egg is like alive or not alive, right? But you
Oh,
should do
wow.
it in a
Okay.
sense. You should do it in a sense where it's like, it's open and it's
Right,
understanding.
right.
It's not,
It can't come from a critical lens.
yeah. Like my biggest pet peeve is like when someone calls me ABCD and stuff, and I'm like, oh my
Yeah.
god, I hate that. I hate
Yeah,
that
yeah. Yeah.
because there's a lot. Yeah. Other than that, do you have any plans for 2023? Is there anything like season like are you like Indian Matchmaking season 3? Is there anything like that you're gonna
Yeah.
be a
So
part of?
so I will be in season 3. We don't have a release date for that yet. Hopefully it's early next year. I hope they don't make us wait another 2 years for another season. So that's going on. Like I still love what I do for work, so I'm gonna continue doing that. And that's it. Just spending a lot of time with friends and family, and that's it.
Awesome, awesome.
Mhm.
Well, I think I'm good for now. But do you mind if you do a rapid fire round or?
Sure, let's go for it.
Okay, cool. Let me just look it up real quick because I think
Oh
my
my
doc is
gosh.
doc got destroyed. I was like, oh Lord. Uh, 1 second. Hey, it's a podcast. It should be a raw version. It's all good.
True.
Because I feel like people also do relax in podcasts. So, okay, what is if your life was a story? What would it be titled? I don't
Oh
know
my
why.
god, that's a hard one.
Okay, we could change it.
Oh,
What's your favorite holiday?
definitely Christmas.
Okay, good. What's your favorite pizza topping?
Jalapenos.
I like jalapenos too. I don't like pineapple though.
I haven't had it. I hear a lot of good things, but I can't wrap my head around actually doing that.
You should try it. I mean, pineapple and jalapeno is game changer though, but pineapple alone is not the best. Yeah.
Okay.
What is your favorite dessert?
Probably tiramisu.
That's a good one. I like lava cake from Domino's.
Okay,
Um,
nice.
name a person who inspires you. I think you.
Barack Obama.
Oh, that's a good one. And then, last but not least, what was? That's a stupid question. That's a stupid question. Do you recycle? I'm just gonna ask you that.
Absolutely, 110%. I am so
There you go.
eco-friendly.
Girl
Yes,
Joshi recycles, guys.
I
She cares about
recycle
the
and I have solar
planet.
panels. I recommend everyone get them.
Okay, so she does care about the environment, just to let
Absolutely.
everyone know.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining, Viral. Appreciate your time.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thanks for having me.
For sure. See ya.
All right, bye.
Bye.